And I'd like to extend a wintry welcome to all of Council, of Administration, and folks in the gallery, the media, who can't hear me right now, I don't imagine.
Your job is to remind me to take those things out. Your job is to remind me to clear the desk.
Well, welcome everyone tonight, and I'd like to convene the organizational meeting for Cardston Town Council held this 23rd day of October 2012. So this is the call to order, and for the organizational meeting, would like to ask if there are any additions, and if there are none, we will adopt the agenda by motion. Councillor Dahl so moves that we adopt the agenda for the organizational meeting for Cardston Town Council. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Motion carries. We have for your review tonight the proposed committee structure for the third and final year of the term of this council. So this will be from October 2012 until October 2013. And also the appointment of the deputy mayor assignments for the remaining 12 months. Councillor Kronen takes over on November the 1st, and that will end up April 30th. Councillor Smith takes over May 1st for the remainder of the term. I think at the last meeting we had some discussion, or at least advice on the committee assignments. I think this time I haven't doubled up where someone has to be in two places at one time. So I will accept a motion to accept the committee structure and approve the deputy mayor assignments for the remaining 12 months of this term. Councillor Creed so moves. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that motion. All in favor? Carries. Is there any other business to come to the agenda related to the organizational meeting? Seeing none, I'll call for motion to adjourn. Councillor Court moves we adjourn. We are adjourned. Now we will adjourn to the regular council meeting for this day, the 23rd of October 2012. And we will call for, we will convene, I guess is the right word, for the regular council meeting, and Councillor Court has the honors.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for many blessings for the opportunity of living in this great and free land. We ask thy inspiration be upon us as we make decisions regarding our community, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. And now I'd like a motion for adoption of the agenda with any additions. I have one. There is an in-camera item. This will be 13B. Any names of individuals proposed to sit on boards, those have to be dealt with in camera. That is in addition 13B for one of our boards with some names presented for that. I will call for motion for the adoption of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Smith so moved. Discussion on that motion. Seeing that, I will call a question. All in favor? Agenda is adopted with the one addition. We will immediately, actually no, we have a 5:30 delegation, so we'll move through. Item number 5 is for adoption of the minutes of the council meeting of October the 9th, 2012. Councillor Kronen moves adoption of the minutes for the regular council meeting on October the 9th, 2012. Any discussion on those minutes? I would like to propose a minor change. Let me just find it here as I noted it. If I can't find it, then I guess we won't be entertaining it. Guess we won't change it because I had it and I can't find it. So I'll call for the approval of the motion to adopt the minutes. All in favor? Carried. Minutes are adopted. 6A, the Gordon Orr property. The status of that situation right now is that the Orr family was represented on site with administration and the engineer. And at this time, we're awaiting the engineer's decision on the developability of that property for another residence to be on that site. Is that correct?
Just
With some clarification that in
Yeah.
terms of the cost that could be applied there.
right, just for clarification is they still want to do some further study on the hill itself. So administration has agreed to send our backhoe down there and take some layers of soil out so that they can analyze how the soil is being impacted on that lot from the hill adjacent to it. At this point in time, they're doing that for no further cost from our original proposal. At such time as they've determined the condition of the soil, they will prepare an analysis as to whether they think that there needs to be further study done on the lot, and they'll determine a cost at that time.
Okay, so no action until we get the more information that is pending on that. Item number 6B is the bylaw 1616, the dog bylaw. Marian, would you walk us through that with a little bit of the history and some recent developments, please?
Yes, after the meeting last 2 weeks ago, I guess it is now, Councillor Creed had made some contact with George Cuff, and I had also made some contact for some casual legal advice. Councillor Creed came in and spoke to me about a couple of changes that he perceived needed to be adopted within the bylaw. And the one clause, if you look at 22CI or 1 and 2, without the word "as" shown in Schedule A, the intent of the bylaw is misleading, because without the word "as," it says that the fines will be double or triple shown in Schedule A. And the double and triple is already identified in Schedule A, so without the word "as" shown, it would actually mean that you were going to quadruple, and it would be, that's not the intent of the bylaw. So with that amendment, that will require us bringing, because third reading has taken place, it will require us bringing forward a new bylaw to address that, or an amended bylaw. So prior to doing that, I wanted to know if there was any other changes that needed to be made.
Council, any other changes as this process moves to rewrite? Any changes that you'd like to make? Councillor Creed?
I discussed this a little bit with you, Marian, and one of the things I was a little uncomfortable with was the definition of a nuisance dog, and as I read through this again, I'm still uncomfortable with that, and maybe I could just, I don't know if I could discuss that with you later on, because there is a designation where the bylaw officer actually designates a dog as a nuisance dog and requires, possibly requires a nuisance dog license, and because that's in there, it doesn't seem to me that it quite fits with the definition of nuisance dog. But anyway, if you'd like, how would you me to discuss that with you further? I can.
Yeah, so I'm okay to have that conversation if council's okay with that, and then we'll bring forward the amendment to the bylaw.
So is that similar to a repeat offender?
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, because the nuisance definition doesn't talk about a repeat offender. It just talks about certain conditions that would exist, and so.
Council, are we comfortable with letting that discussion, and then it would come forward as a possible change or proposal?
Well, if I could look at number 2 is maybe what you're referring to, N2, the dog left in a motor vehicle. Obviously, it has to be in the back of a pickup on the open space to be able to try to bark at somebody or try to bite somebody. And then it will create a nuisance in my own mind.
Yeah, well, let me just explain what my concern is that those conditions, a dog at large or a dog in a vehicle or a dog, being in those, do create a nuisance situation.
Yeah.
But the bylaw,
the
bylaw provides that if a dog, the bylaw officer can actually declare an animal a nuisance dog. And what I'm thinking is that if that happens once, Lloyd usually gives a warning, and so what my thoughts are is that the definition to fit probably should say has habitually or over a period of time been in those conditions, and then the dog would be in a position to be declared a nuisance dog by the bylaw officer, or add that definition as another definition that a dog can be a nuisance dog if declared so by the bylaw officer. That would be the other
possibility. A dog that's in the back of a pickup jumps out and bites somebody is a nuisance dog at that very moment.
Yeah.
Right?
And so maybe as we have the discussion, maybe we just add a third category for nuisance dog being a declaration, because that does happen. I mean, it's provided for in the bylaws. So anyway.
Yeah. Councillor Dahl.
I think that when it talks about vehicle there, we better define, because if the dog is inside of a car, it can't bother anybody.
But let's remember that if you're a 6-year-old child walking by that car, which a 6-year-old child has every right to do in a public space, that can be very, very intimidating. It can be extremely intimidating. So, and of course, the window's always rolled down a little bit, typically, a couple inches, for the animal to have some fresh air.
The dog can't get out.
And if you understand the definition of assault is just a threat. A threat is enough to constitute an assault in law between, let's say, if I threaten someone, that can be an assault. But let these discussions take place.
I think so.
And I know there's several pages to this bylaw. Marian.
Yeah, I also just wanted to clarify that process. One of the things that Councillor Creed was talking about at the last council meeting was that prior to second or third reading of the bylaw, the amendment to the bylaw needs to be passed by resolution of council. So we will reform our processes for that, and we'll make sure that that's carried out moving forward, so that we make sure that those amendments are clearly noted within the minutes for record purposes. Okay?
All right, so now we'll move to 6C, 11th Street West, and Marian, do you want to move into that one for us, involving some issues of a survey and so forth?
Yes. This is a follow-up to the presentation that Mr. Bagazi made to council, I believe 2 meetings ago as well. And after that meeting, I believe John Schaefer is the person who went to MPE Engineering and received a quote for topographical survey for 11th Street and surveying of the existing sanitary manholes and provision of a plan that would detail the existing grades of the proposed road. The cost of that was $2,000 plus GST, and that was brought into the office and asked if the town would cover the cost of that survey. And because of the current private land use policy of town council, this is before council for your consideration if you want to consider covering those costs. And there's a lot of background information in your package regarding the history of 11th Street.
One of the concerns that arises with this request is there's a whole lot of background work, there's a whole lot of engineering that needs to take place before a road surveys of any value, there has to be a subdivision plan, a development plan presented in order to begin the survey process. Any other thoughts on that?
Did Mr. Schaefer,
Go ahead.
Did Mr. Schaefer just do this on his own, or was the town involved with this as well?
No, that was at their own request, yeah.
And they'd like the town to reimburse them, so is that the
I don't
idea?
believe that, you can ask John, he's here.
That's
I don't
it.
believe he's entered into any contract or paid any costs at this point.
No. In fact, what I understand is, talking with Bob, he talked with you, and you had suggested you go to and get a price for a survey, and also, I'm not saying you guys were paying for it, I just said he was to go get a price for the survey and the height of the depth of utilities in that area, because that's what we have to do. We actually wanted to get it subdivided off. I think, and then after me talking with Bob, I said, I'll look into it and see what it would cost. So that's what I did. I looked into it to see what it would cost. As Bob and I came and talked with Jeff at the town office here, from way back, there was $25,000 that was set aside to actually get it subdivided off 11th Street. It got stopped when Weston's, there was no deal that could be reached with acquiring the land from Weston's. The reason we went is because now we had Holland's had offered to let the road go through on their land from 10th to 11th, about 3rd. So that's why we came with a cost of what it would cost, and we thought maybe the town, because they had said that they would pay $25,000 towards, I guess, the development of that area for the subdivision, that we could get the town to pay for that, so we could continue on doing it. And the other thing that we wanted to do, we needed to also get it pinned where the road was going to go, so that we could actually get, when dirt was available, to get it dumped in the road for if we would have had all this done before, when the church was taking all the dirt out of the parking lot, we could have had the road base done for 11th Street for no charge. And I still think we still can do that. But I guess this is the first step. So.
Thanks, John. Councillor Creed.
Yeah, I guess what I want to clarify, you mentioned subdivision, needed to be made, and we've gone through the 11th Street, but as I recall, I think John and I can't remember who else came in, and they presented a plan which went through Sanderson's from 12th. Is that the because that was approved by council? They approved that as a
I didn't know that they had approved.
As a route. So if
that was an option.
That okay.
In my own opinion, the best option would be to go through Holland's land.
So that's different than what was proposed at that time. The other one.
We had 3 options at that time.
Okay, so
either one of those would have been fine.
probably we need to approve the final
Was up there.
one.
Yeah, if I might, I think it's important that we know the exact plan design, because it would be an amendment to the original area structure plan, which would require an amendment by council, approval by council for that. But I think
would it need that if it went up 3rd?
Yeah, I'll have to pull out that plan. I'm not sure what the original area structure plan, I think there was a road designed for there, so then it wouldn't, but I haven't seen that plan. Sorry, I don't mean to be, I should be addressing council, I apologize. So the first thing is to see the plan, to make sure that it complies with our current area structure plan. But I think just to talk a little bit about process, and I understand from what John is saying that yes, you do need to identify where the manholes are and the topographical and all of that, because that establishes finished grades for a lot of your infrastructure. But to be able to acquire the land and really move forward with any kind of formal road design requires a process of subdivision. And John was just talking about identifying pins so that they could put fill in there where they think the road is going to be, but pins are not located or put in the ground until after final subdivision. So this is just one step in the process of subdivision that would be required as part of it. So I just think that it's important that you look at the bigger picture and the process that needs to be undertaken to really finalize that road design, than to just take it one small piece at a time.
Thank you, Marian. Councillor Kronen, you had a question?
Well, I just was trying to put things back into the time frame of all the different bylaws that were passed by council since this council came in. And that was just after there was a council meeting before this council sat, where you and Mr. Bergozzi,
Sorry, I can't hear you.
okay. You came to council prior to this council, prior to the new council, and there was a motion that had been passed regarding what you're talking about, the $25,000. Now, this new council came, and if I remember right, the very end of November seems to me that we had a bylaw that was passed regarding land development and how costs were going to be taken care of. It seems to me, if I recall properly, Marian, am I correct, or?
Your Worship, there was a motion to proceed by way of local improvement, and then in the end of November, November 30th, which would have been the first sitting of this current council, the minutes state that council reviewed all the historical information relating to 11th Street development, and from that, administration was directed to draft a development policy for the town. And further discussion was tabled until the next council meeting. That private development policy is what this council passed, which, if I recall the discussion, it was important to council to understand what council's role was in partnership with private development, and the policy is there for your review.
Yes. So at that time, it seems to me that council said that we were not going to carry on with the $20,000 from that $25,000 set aside until we understood the private development policy and that we had one in place.
If I can speak to the $25,000, there was a motion to proceed with the surveying of 11th Street, and this goes back some time. Probably in 2010, I believe is the date on that. We went forward with the initial survey costs with Martin Geomatic out of Lethbridge, and we spent approximately $5,000. At that time, it was estimated the cost to finish the engineering and register the legal plan for the road would be between $20,000 and $25,000. So that was not a motion of council for the $20,000 to $25,000. It was simply we reported to council. So then there was the next motion that was put on the table after that was to proceed with the development of 11th Street with procurement and subdivision of property up to $20,000, a trail road, and to open negotiations for the utilities. At that time, after that motion was made, we met with all the property owners again. We were unable to procure the land that was required to proceed with that subdivision, and that is what ended up putting it on hold. After that time, there was a proposal brought in from 12th Street for an access from 12th Street because we weren't able to procure the land on 2nd Avenue. And then there was also a further motion. That was on September 28th. There was some proposals for 11th Street that would not cross the property on 2nd Avenue. Then there was a motion put forward at that time to accept Proposal 3, which was an access off of 12th, as presented by Mr. Bagazi, with the exception of accessing 11th Street via 2nd Avenue and not the west bypass. So then that motion was tabled, and then the motion was withdrawn. And then a further motion was put forward. Sorry, I'm just trying to, there's a lot of history here. To proceed with the surveying of, identifying of, and initiating the development of 11th Street from 2nd Avenue South to 5th Avenue as presented in the design. And then there was an amendment put to that, I believe, for by way of local improvement, but I'll have to pull up that motion. So it was a little bit of back and forth there on where the road was going to go and where those costs were going to come from. So I know it's clear as mud, and I apologize, but we tried to follow the timeline of it by way of minutes and looking at those motions.
Marian, I
just one more comment to that, sorry. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, okay, let me jump just for a second down to the next item on the agenda, which is bylaw 1590 and 1607, both dealing with off-site levies. We're at a point where Marian, having uncovered some projects that were not finished or whatever, we're contemplating very, very seriously kind of going back to square one and taking these two pieces of legislation and combine them. And that kind of means, does it not, that we maybe kind of go back and begin a little bit different approach, because right now council isn't prepared to spend any more money involving 11th Street, because we need to go back and look at these two bylaws, 1590 and 1607. Do you want to speak to that, Marian?
Well, I don't believe that bylaw 1590 and 1607 impact 11th Street.
Okay.
Sorry, I think they're two separate issues. So I'd prefer if we could finish with 11th Street and then we can move on to that, Your Worship.
So what, as you see it then, what question do we need to answer on item number 6? If council isn't prepared to spend any more money on 11th Street, that's the simple question for us. Because there's a lot of, elevations have to be established, and that has to be established when there's a plan put forth that's finalized through our planners, through ORS, with all of the elevations and utilities and all those kinds of things. It's pretty useless expenditure of money to go in and spend money on a road when it all could be wasted in a sense. Councillor Dahl.
I think the people who are residents on 11th Street should solve the problem of the land procurement between themselves. We can't solve that problem. And once they solve that problem, we can go ahead with the development of 11th Street, once they've solved the land procurement problem.
Now you're talking about the Weston piece coming out on the second half.
Weston or the 11th piece are both problems as far as we're concerned, and I don't think the town can solve those problems. I think they've got to solve them between themselves.
Now, there may be a partial solution in front of us, as we're hearing that the Hollands are prepared to let 3rd Avenue go through, because that was one of the alternate options presented about a year and a half ago. Councillor Creed, you had a comment?
Well, yeah, it's just, I don't remember council approving that. I think we approved the one going up to the west bypass. So I'd like to actually see that information that we had. If it's different, you know, if we've got it going through Hollands now, I think that's probably the first step, is that we need to approve that road in that location. If, you know, if everybody's happy with it, then, you know, I really like to see them get on with it, but we need to just get the, you know, the right procedure, and I think that would be the first step, is to approve, you know, if we've got a final decision on where the road needs to go, we just need to have that presented and approve it as I see it, and then they can move forward from that point.
Councillor Cord?
I'm looking at the estimated cost of developing everything in that area. Is there a real serious desire to spend that money after we develop 11th Street? Is the town going to come up with the $2 million? Is the developers going to come up with the $2 million? We're talking about 11th Street, but if nobody's going to spend any money to develop it after we've surveyed it or whatever we've done with it, then what? We just have a road sitting there and nothing getting done because nobody wants to spend the money to develop it? So are we just kind of chasing our tails here? I don't know.
Start somewhere.
Councillor Kronen, did you have a comment? And then Councillor Smith?
Well, I kind of remember the access to the Holland. They were willing to give a fair amount of land, 60 feet or something like that, between 3rd and 11th. I remember that quite clearly. But I think your comment, Councillor Court, makes sense. The problem is surveying is very nice, but if utilities are not put there, and if nothing else is put in place, and if it's according to our private development policy, if it is the developers themselves, the owners of those parcels that have to develop that, then I'm not so sure what the purpose of carrying on with that project. I'm not so sure.
Councillor
I'm
Smith?
clearing my mind. Maybe John would like to add something. I saw you with you.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to totally agree with Councillor Court there, exactly on that. I mean, that's the issue. I mean, if we do the survey on the land, then what? What's the next step? You say just take some dirt and throw it down. Well, it's a lot more than that to a road.
I understand.
And there's a lot of expense to it, so.
But it's just like Marian said, it's one step at a time.
Yeah, but that's what Councillor Court was saying is.
To me, the first step should,
I know, just a second, John. Just let me finish here. That's what I was saying is, Councillor Court was saying, are we prepared to go further than that? So are we throwing, what are you going to do once you're, you know, and if we did pay the survey and they put the pins and you subdivide it, you have no access, or you have no.
I still think the most important thing is to get the land first. And that's been one of the problems. At one time, I had the land, and then we didn't get it surveyed off. And so then it fell through. So I think the very first thing is we need to do and get the land, get it surveyed off. And then we can go with the next steps. But to sit back and say, well, okay, you know, and think, well, maybe the people up there are never ever going to do anything. Yeah, I agree. If you have that attitude with it, it'll never ever get done.
So are you suggesting that the town pay for the survey? What's going to happen? Who procures land? Like who spends the money to buy the land?
What I had gone to the town to ask, because there was a motion made to spend $25,000, was to get some of that $25,000 to put towards the development of 11th Street. That's what I had gone to the town, Mr. Bugazzi and myself.
To secure the land.
Pardon?
To secure the land. To buy the land.
To get it, no, not to, well, it was actually, it was I don't even know if it was it to buy the land?
No, it wouldn't.
From Weston?
It wouldn't be to purchase the land, no. It would simply be to survey and subdivide. There's a cost to subdivision and having those titles registered at land titles. And so in order to even procure the land, if Hollands have agreed that they're going to give up the 60 feet, just simply to have this survey done does not accomplish that. You actually have to go through the process of subdivision to acquire the land and show it on title as being a roadway,
Right.
which is the additional cost.
Councillor
I guess
Court?
that's my question. Are the landowners in that area prepared to pony up the cost for subdivision up there? I guess I could reverse that question. If we do the $25,000 or whatever it costs to survey this road, are the landowners prepared to come up with the other huge amount of money to actually develop it and get it subdivided and sell properties?
Well,
And then we can put out $20,000. In the scheme of things, that's not a ton of money, but what's going to happen afterwards? Now we got a nice surveyed road sitting there with nothing going on.
Surveyed road, even if it's sat the way it is, you would know the difference between the way it sits now and a surveyed road.
Then why would we survey it then?
Because then the land is acquired. I mean, we're one step closer to it. And if we were gonna, and maybe the whole thing would get surveyed off, but we didn't price out to survey the whole 11th Street. It was the access, it was going up to 11th Street and then going south towards Tunes. So that's what that price is. It wasn't surveying the other way.
Yeah, but it's simply,
well.
it's simply to survey, not to subdivide. It's a subdivision that costs.
Can I ask what happened to the $5,000 that we initially
Well, we
put?
still have that information there, but because we
What
can't.
was done? Was there an
That was-
actual
we had
survey done?
Yeah, we had a surveyor come in and do some preliminary work and draw some preliminary design for us,
Okay,
using the topographical information.
So what would be the difference between what John wants and what's being done then?
Different route, a different route.
Different, yeah.
So I would assume that surveyor would use some of the information that we've already acquired for the part that
Different
goes
route also
south.
that they would pin it as well.
They can't pin it prior to subdivision finalized at land titles. So there
Maybe
would be
what-
no pins.
Maybe what needs to
It
be
has to
done
be
is just stake it. Pins?
They could possibly stake
They could
it,
stake
yeah,
it.
but it's not
Councillor-
legally served.
Yeah, pins go in when everything's legally set in stone. So Councillor Court, you had a comment?
Yeah, I might be out of pace on this. I've been on council 5 years. We've been dealing with this for, I believe, 5 years at least. I think the overriding, maybe, okay, before I got here, I think the overriding problem, if I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the landowners have an idea that the town should be providing a certain amount of money up there, and the town has the idea that the landowner should be providing that money. And I think until we can come to an understanding of who's actually going to pay for this, we're kind of spinning our wheels on 11th Street. I mean, we keep going over and over on 11th Street, but nobody's talking about what's happening after 11th Street and who's going to pay for that. That's just kind of what I'm seeing as an overall problem.
I think I mean, sure, I would love to have the town pay for it. Okay, but I'm sitting back here and I realize that you guys have put things through that the landowner is starting to pay for it. It's supposed to be starting to pay for it. But even before that happened, they had agreed to build 11th Street. And that's where I'm coming from.
So
So the 25,000 that was set aside in the motion, we're back here asking if we can use that towards it.
Can I ask a question here? The Ellison development, when they did that development, doing the subdivision over there, how much did the town give them for surveying and putting the roads in and things? Nothing? Okay.
And I've made this point many times, and it's going back 6.5 years. The point is, Ellison owns all of their land. Up there in the west end, we have multiple landowners. It was like that. The town came in and said, this is the overlay. Everybody agreed that this would be the overlay. But when we really get down to it, there's people that say, no, I don't want to do this now. Okay, so that's what we're up against. If I owned all the land, I wouldn't be talking to you about who's going to pay for all the services going on.
Well, it sounds like you have everyone all in line there
We only
to,
got parking, that's why we're going up to 11th Street and going south.
yeah, well, like I say, I mean, if Ellison's can come up with the funds, so
At
can
one
you
time,
guys.
the town had said that they would.
That was when the
develop
MSI
11th
grant
Street.
was $300 and some odd thousand more than it is now.
You know, and I don't want to sit here and go over the last 6.5 years with it, because I've done that.
Well, we figure you would've got the message by now, but that's okay.
Okay, let me,
This is what I think, Dave. I think the town should maybe get the message too, that nothing will ever get done up there because of the way the town has done it. If you're going to depend on 6 or 7 landowners to do it.
Yeah, but if it's not a priority of the town, then
Okay, let's,
Well,
to
it's not a
understand.
priority of the town.
You have to understand that.
Actually,
For pet
collect
projects,
taxes
no, you're right.
on houses, it's probably one of the best areas in town for taxes.
For pet projects, no.
okay, let's get back here to,
One other thing I just wanted to say, and I did go and talk to Dave, and I wanted to say this the last time I was here, because he brought up, he says, as long as I'm sitting on council, you'll never see 11th Street.
okay, we're that's not information that needs to come to public. So, John, we're done. Marian, here's what I'm going to suggest. Whoever wants to speak for the property owners in Area A, let's establish a critical path. Let's establish a critical path of steps that need to be dealt with from where we are right now. And let's have council then be apprised of that critical path, of the obstacles, the hurdles, the proposals that have to be surmounted, the details that have to be dealt with, and then we hopefully can move forward determining who pays, determining when, and then we ultimately have to come up with the resolution on the next item, which is the off-site levies issue. Now, we can't go into that issue right there, but Marian, is that going to work if administration could possibly, and maybe get with someone from, whether it's John or whoever, to establish the critical path of processes and steps that need to be, and then council would look at those and also try to be able to at least come to some resolution on the steps. Who pays? Can we be involved there? And council okay with that sort of an approach? Okay. I'm going to have to move into the delegation that's scheduled to come at 5:30.
First, until you got an agreement between the landowners, we're going to continue to wallow.
But we're at least going to have established a critical path of how we go from A to B to C to D, details that have to be outlined and clarified, and hopefully we can come to some resolution that it would be nice if we can resolve this issue for the owners up there, and we'd love some development, and if we can acquire the land and move forward, that's a step right there. There is a lot of engineering work and details that have to go through our planners before we actually can designate a road, but we can certainly stake a road if that's something that will work. So, Marian, are we okay moving forward then with this process of establishing a critical path of each detail that needs to be addressed? Okay, now, I'd like to welcome the delegation. The delegation is composed of Reeve Curl from Cardston County and Tony Walker, who's from Community Futures. And thank you.
How you doing?
How are you? Good. How you doing, Mayor? 4 points in Erasmus. Okay, we'd like to thank you for letting us come for a few minutes. We've got a tag team. This is much more light and this will be a lot more fun than some of the serious stuff you have to handle in council. I know a little bit about that. But I appreciate you letting us take a few minutes. We won't take more than 2 hours. No, just real quick. I'll introduce you to Tony Walker. He's the Chief Administrative Officer, General Manager of Community Future Southwest. He's been here for several years, but 4 years, 6 years somewhere else, and lots of degrees. And anyway, I'll let you take about 5 minutes, and I'll chip in because I want to get right to the fun issue here.
Okay, what I thought we would do is just, I'll give you a quick overview. I know some of you have seen this before, just a real quick reminder of who we are and what we do. And then, as Councillor Kronen said, we'll get right into our current issue. So who we are is a federal government program funded since 1992 We are funded by Western Economic Diversification. We are formerly known as the Southwest Alberta Business Development Institute. 7 partners got together back in 1992 and formed a nonprofit corporation called Southwest Alberta Business Development Institute, and the town of Cardston was one of those members. In 2007, we went through a rebranding phase, and we changed our name to Community Futures Alberta Southwest, as did all of the Community Futures offices in Western Canada. We're now prefaced with the word Community Futures and then our territories. So we do have 27 offices here in Alberta. We all get just about $300,000 annual budget from Western Economic Diversification, and we currently have a loan portfolio of a little over $3 million. We have $1 million outstanding in loans, and we have $2 million ready to loan.
So is that Community Futures as a whole, or is that just your office, or?
That's just our office.
That's just your office.
Yeah. We are a nonprofit organization guided by a volunteer board of directors and staffed with business professionals actively engaged in developing and implementing community projects. We are a business development center that can make loans of up to $150,000 to individuals interested in starting, expanding, or purchasing a business. And we are an entrepreneurial development center that provides business training, business counseling, and coaching to individuals, again, interested in starting, expanding, or purchasing a business. Our board is made up of local members from each of our partner communities. We have Shirley Isaacson from the town of Carlson, Bill Hart from the town of Fort Macleod, Robert Bernard from Pincher Creek, Nolan Card is our representative from the town of Cardston, David Mulholland from the MD of Willow Creek, Councillor Curl from Cardston County, and Bev Garvin, a director from the MD of Pincher Creek. We are a small staff, 3 of us, myself, the general manager. We have a business analyst, Kurt Clements.
You got the most important one down there.
And James Tessier, our CED coordinator. Our services include individualized one-on-one business counseling, ongoing coaching and mentoring, access to a local business network, expertise through our referral network, and a resource library in our office in Pincher Creek, and we do economic development. Our partners include our funder, Western Economic Development Canada, Chambers of Commerce, economic development officers and committees, town, county, and MD councils, the REDAs. Some of our current programs that we have going right now are the small business learning sessions through the Business Link, the Go For It Institute training program, which is small business owner training, the business visitation program that we embarked on about a year ago, and I'll touch on that just a little bit later, and the Alberta Youth Entrepreneurship Camp, along with our Chinook Entrepreneur Challenge, that 7 or 8 CFs get together and do a business plan competition each year. Our history of lending just by community, you can see the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th bar is Cardston, Claresholm, and Fort Macleod. So taking out the 2 big outliers, Pincher Creek and the MD of Pincher Creek, the rest of the lending is pretty stable across the other 3 communities and a lot lower in the municipal districts in the county. We have various products. We don't compete with the banks, but we have very similar products to the banks. Instant loans, lines of credit, innovative loans, business buyout, branch services, youth loans, and disabled persons loans. Many financial institutions and business organizations refer entrepreneurs directly to us. We can often loan money to businesses that are turned down by traditional lenders. We can work creatively with those traditional lenders on joint financing, taking second positions sometimes. And we offer counseling, coaching, and workshops, as I said, and we believe in small business. So now, in dealing with the current issue, earlier this summer, a letter was sent to Western Economic Development requesting that the town of Cardston leave Community Futures Alberta Southwest and join the Community Futures office in Lethbridge. My board was very reluctant to agree to that. As a matter of fact, it took a couple of board meetings for us to even decide to agree to it. And just as we were going to agree to it, more issues came up, and the board decided that they really don't want the town of Cardston to leave, and that we would like an opportunity to save the relationship and carry on as before. So we want to rectify any problems and assure the town of Cardston councillors, yourselves, that the CF will have more presence and relevance in their community. One of the reasons why we didn't want to see the town of Cardston leave is the implications that it could have on the CF program as a whole. It's been described as a domino effect, where some of the other CF offices might see this as an opportunity to change boundaries, and they might, there's been a bit of a move within CFs that what they call modernization, what I refer to as centralization. There was some discussions a little more than a year ago about merging offices, and at one time we were talking with the CF of Lethbridge to join with CF Alberta Southwest and CF in Crow's Nest Pass to become one big Community Futures office, and that didn't happen. There was a lot of other issues, and again, this centralization, the feeling that our local budget will now move to a big city, and much like other government programs, we become irrelevant over time.
But let me chip in there.
Sure.
I went to the big convention about a year ago, and they had this facilitator there who was talking about modernization. We need to modernize the whole CF program. And what it came down to, they wanted to centralize it all into the bigger centers. You got 27 CFs, cut it down to about 15 or 10, which means Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Red Deer, and just have them there, and maybe a few BAs or business analysts floating around the smaller towns. I mean, it's like having, well, we don't need a hospital in Cardston. Let's just have a clinic in Cardston. That's good enough. Because really, you have a much better hospital in Lethbridge. It's only 45 minutes away, and away we go. And that's a very similar analogy. In fact, I went to a meeting where they made the big announcement that they're going to spend another $127 million on a hospital in Lethbridge. I was there last Friday. And a few of the health people came up to me and said, "Now you're at Cardston's next. Cardston's next. We really want to do Cardston, but we've got to do this centralized modernization system. We got to do this one first. But really, Cardston's important to us." And it was emphasized how important Cardston was to me. Now, I hope they're right, but we may have to change. I'll have to talk to my friend Gary Bickman to change parties maybe before that ever happens. But I was amazed at the convention, the pressure that was put on everybody to modernize, which means centralize. And we tried centralizing various government things in the past, thinking that'd be better. I mean, after all, you can have a much bigger center for hospitals, for example, in Lethbridge than here, better specialization, more specialists. So the argument here, should we use a CF office in Lethbridge or here? You say, well, that's the natural corridor. We maybe get better service. Maybe you would get better service. There's 4 people working at the Lethbridge office right now, and there's 3 people working here. You handle 7 small communities, and Lethbridge handles all of Lethbridge, which is huge compared to all the communities. And how many more?
10 in total.
10 in total. So they're trying to handle all that with 4 people. Of course, what they would do, as soon as you do this so-called modernization or centralization, they say, well, we need more funds. Take from the little guy, and let's give it to the big guy. And that's what would happen. If I look at the situation, your service may or may not be better, or may be better if you go to Lethbridge. I don't think so. I think that we're going to apply enough. We have a much better board of directors with this local one. Yeah. I don't know who's on the other board of directors, but I'm on this one. And there'll be a lot more. We will make sure that we'll get better service, and we'll figure out how we can get better service. But my main concern is a domino effect. It really is. It does set a precedence. It sets up the scenario, the talking points. Well, look at it. We really should do more of the centralizing, and I think it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. I have had some experience with WD. The WD many years ago had a different approach. In fact, they're going back to some extent. Their approach was, we're going to help businesses by giving interest-free loans of up to $1, $2, $3 million. They were doing this back in the early 90s and late 80s. And I was on the coast at that time, and I go into the WD office and say, look, I got this high-tech company. Here's my product schedule. I'd like $3 million. And we're at 5 million sales now. Here's how I'm going to get to 50 million. I spent a day on it, so I knew it was a good project. I had this all figured out here. I was going to get 50 million in 5 years. 50 if I had a good ring to it too, you know. So I had my analysis of my products, how I was going to do it. And I said, I need $3 million to do this. So the WD officer says, that looks good to me. And so we got $3 million interest-free. And believe it or not, we hit those pegs in 5 years. I couldn't believe it, how accurate that was. That's why we spent one whole day on it. But then over the years, we borrowed from WD up to about $20 million. And we paid it all back. And we had up to 500 employees, most of them engineers, exporting a lot of goods up to $80 million a year down into the U.S. So it was good for WD, good for the economy, and it made a lot of sense. Their approach now is, let's support the little small businesses who can't get loans from the banks. And so they set up these CF offices all over the West and the East Coast also. And I really think that it's good if we do emphasize the smaller towns. It's just, we are in smaller communities. We are not in Lethbridge. And it may or may not help Carlson that much to stay with Pincher Creek, but you help Pincher Creek. If at the minimum is, you know, wherever it's headquartered, they're going to do a lot more loans. It'd be nice if it's headquartered here. The reason they're headquartered in Pincher Creek is what I was told last night, because you guys put some rent-free facilities from the town. As a result, you're headquartered in, well, I wonder if every 10 years we should switch locations. And we figure out some inexpensive place where we can set up a shop and move the 3 guys here eventually, and then we get a lot of emphasis for these loans and also business training. The business training is really very good. And I know a little bit about it. I got a Master of Business Administration. Gary Bickman and I went to school at the same time at BYU. We had Steve Covey as a professor. It was great. It was a good time.
So Reeve, if I could, you gave some good anecdotal information about when you were on the coast and you came in and needed $3 million and you just did some great things. Do you have in vision right now some specifics? I mean, and I'm not asking for details, but do you have some projects, some things that could potentially grow in Cardston and the county?
Okay. What they've done, they've gone to different communities. You have some of those little booklets there we can show people. They go to communities and they do a survey. They go knock on a lot of doors, get to know the businesses, do an analysis, and as a result, these analysts get to know who all the businesses are, and then they start mining this information and go to them and say, well, how can we help you? Maybe we can help you with a loan. Maybe we can help you with this. And as a result, in the county, they've been done in the county. They didn't do it here in the town because of this letter that was sent. Let's stop here being cold in its tracks when the letter was sent. And so we're getting some loans out in the county, which are great. Just happened last month. I was quite pleased. There are more opportunities. There's at least 100 businesses around here, and we should be able to get some more loans out here. The government's funding a lot of this. We must also take advantage of some of that.
I'm just looking to see if our next delegation is here because we want to be sensitive to time. But you're lucky the next delegation isn't here yet, I don't think.
Well, we don't need to take a lot more time anyways. That's basically, unless you...
Yeah, I just had a couple of more bullet points. One thing I heard that might be different between CF Lethbridge and CF Alberta Southwest was interest-free loans. They have a program that are interest-free loans to some of their clients. Nothing is interest-free. Somebody is paying that interest. So the program that they have with the City of Lethbridge and with the Town of Coaldale are that their local government is paying the interest on those loans. So to the client, they're getting an interest-free loan, and that's how they promote it. And it is a program that we could start. They do share their best practices, and it is a program that we've talked about at our board level. Just haven't really done it.
It's administered by the CF office, but...
Right. The interest paid by an economic development committee or a town out of their budget.
And particularly those are small ones for storefronts to fix up.
$10,000 business improvement loans.
That's an interesting approach.
And then just as Councillor Kronen was referring to the business visitation program, the reports I've handed out, we've done the reports for the MD of Willow Creek, Clare's Home, the MD of Willow Creek, the town of Fort Macleod, and the town of Pincher Creek, and we just completed the Cardston County /Waterton /MD of Pincher Creek report going to press right now. That report was an opportunity for us to visit with all business owners in the community. About 60% of business owners took part in our survey, and our community economic development person spent up to half an hour with all of those people. Cardston was to be the pilot project, but we got pushed back because of the Mount Royal. Mount Royal was also doing a business visitation survey, and we were asked to put ours on the back burner until Mount Royal was finished. She had issues with the contamination of data collection and things like that. We did in the past have 2 business analysts, and apparently we used to send one to Cardston quite regularly. We now have 1 business analyst, but our current philosophy is that he is available anytime, anywhere. So if we get a call that he needs to be in Cardston, he would be in Cardston. And any program that's offered by a CF office in Alberta, Canada-wide actually, can undoubtedly be replicated by us if it's a program that our communities are interested in. So I guess the last question I have is just trying to judge the feeling of what does the town of Cardston perceive that the CF Lethbridge office could give them that the CF Alberta Southwest office can't.
I might be able to answer that a little bit. Our natural corridor is Highway 5. I go through Pincher Creek maybe on the way to BC once every 3 years. And I noticed on your graph that Pincher Creek and the county of Pincher Creek were way up here, and their bills is way down here. And that may have to do with the fact that you're in Pincher Creek and we just don't connect with Pincher Creek. I know a lot more business people are connecting with Lethbridge and Pincher Creek, and maybe you can offer the same things. Obviously you can offer the same things, but it just isn't a natural fit for us to go 50 miles that way.
I think if CF Lethbridge put together a graph, it would be Lethbridge, Coaldale.
Well, I'm sure it would, but I'm not quite sure. There just isn't a connection to Pincher Creek, and we don't hear from you a ton of times apparently, and
that's why I was making the point. Even if you analyze, say you can get better service from Lethbridge, and you may or may not, to me, the question is, are you going to support the small communities throughout Alberta by making sure that CF stay here and we don't do a domino effect and start centralizing or modernizing? Similarly, do we want to move all hospitals to the big centers and just have clinics here? That's just very similar from a business point of view.
Any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, like I say, I've been on council. This is my 5th year, 6th year, Tony. I'm sorry we don't see you guys down here ever. I've heard you mention every other municipality around except for Cardston, and there's also an excuse when you came to Cardston about why you couldn't make it down here. I own a business for 6 years. I've never heard of you coming banging on my door, or I'm sure, I don't know if the mayor has or whatever, but I mean, I'm sure there's probably a lot of businesses that have never heard from Community Futures or even know what Community Futures is.
That's what the business visitation program is all about.
Okay,
the point is why we want to go to Lethbridge is, like Councillor Court said, it is a natural corridor for us. That's one of the reasons why we left Alberta Southwest, is because we didn't fit into that Highway 3. We're Highway 5, we kind of work with McGrath and Raymond and Lethbridge and those type of areas, eh? So I mean, from my point of view, first of all, we get no service from Community Futures Alberta Southwest. 0, none at all. Okay, we've seen you maybe 3 times in 6 years, and that wasn't in the community property. So I mean, we can't get any worse service from Lethbridge. I'll go and say that there, or whatever. So I mean, that's one of the reasons. And from what I see, I mean, it might be just a job saver is why you guys are down here. So.
Any questions or
changes in our funding or anything if you leave?
Yeah. Any other questions or comments from council? Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I think
Kronen?
if I understand you, Rivka, what you're trying to tell us is a decision, it's a political decision. You would rather favor a political decision rather than an economic decision.
And there's nothing stopping from a business going to Lethbridge and getting a loan there, if they want to get a loan there. But what I'm asking you to do is, this is what all politicians like to do nothing. Don't send any more letters. I mean, if you want people to go there, in any case, we'll get more work out of 20 if we don't say, don't come to town, don't talk to anybody. Well, how's he going to help anybody? Don't talk to anybody. He's got to do the surveys, because and do some. We'd be glad to do it in any case, yes.
And I appreciate, Reeve Curl, that you come here and you're kind of sticking up for Community Southwest. But I mean, you know, I mean, this is a decision that our municipality needs to make there. Right. We realize that you have your own county and jurisdiction or whatever.
You affect Pincher, you affect Crow's Nest, you could affect the whole area by just thinking about yourself.
That's right. We're thinking about what's best for our community is exactly why we're here. Yeah, okay. We're thinking what's better for our community. Okay, and I'll go on with that if you want. So that's for a different day.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I think you've appropriately identified who you are and your point on supporting rural Alberta, so thank you very much. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Reeve. Thank you, Tony. I need just a second for a break here. Then the next issue is the West Wind parking lot.
So we don't have the second delegation?
Is he here? I don't see the next delegation here.
I've messaged to see.
Okay. I'm just going to take a brief pause here. Maybe wait the second delegation. We'll wait until they go before we have any other comments.
But that's not very good.
What's that?
Well, he asked 3 times to be.
Do you want to get us into the discussion while I go out, into the discussion on the West Wind parking lot? That's the next item.
Okay. Or should we do the
Delegation hasn't got here yet.
the bylaw 590? We haven't done that yet, have we?
Well, that's a little bit touchy. I think the West Wind parking lot can be resolved rather quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, that might take some time.
I guess the main thing is that this parking lot, in order to put the access onto Main Street, is going to cost more than was originally proposed. And I don't know, I can't really see that it's that much benefit.
I can't either.
I looked at that issue and I remember when it first came, I questioned why we needed the access right on Main Street. And looking at it, it means we need to move the fountain if we want to keep an aesthetic environment. It means we have to change the elevation to be able to have that exit there. And it's an awful expensive proposition when we could just put a signage and say public parking around the corner. The access to that parking lot is good. It's easy to come from 4th and go into that parking lot and come out back on the street. I don't really see why we need to entertain another exit.
Councillor Dahl?
I agree with Councillor Kronen. I can see people coming down Main Street, making a left turn. They're going north, making a left turn to get into that parking lot off of Main Street, and I think it's
Hazard.
accident
It's dangerous.
going to happen.
Yeah.
I think that if they got access off of 4th Avenue, I think there should be plenty adequate to get into their parking lot and to park their cars, etc.
I would put a motion that we do not carry on with spending $25,000 for that.
Councillor
Are
Smith?
you still okay with 15,500 as high as that to put it in? I would just say leave it at that if they want to take
They
it.
can't do it.
It's not,
They will not share. They will not share the cost.
yeah, it's not West Wind that made the request. It came through
It's
our
a town.
council.
Yeah.
So
There never was an official request from West Wind.
Oh, okay, to put it there, okay.
My motion.
Well, I obviously missed the August meeting because I was holidaying. I don't see any benefit to coming off of 4th Avenue. I realize that in the summertime we might get the odd 1 or 2 cars parking in there, but 99% of the parking there is going to be with West Wind School Division business. I see no reason to have any access in there, and he makes a good point. Turning left right there really close to that 4th Avenue is a hazard. So
Anyway,
I don't see any money.
there's a motion.
So you want to state your motion again?
My apologies, if I could make a comment on maybe I should hear the motion first.
My motion was that we do not entertain a further costs to create an exit on Main Street.
An entrance on Main Street.
Entrance, yeah.
Yeah.
An entrance on Main Street.
It was to be entrance only, is that correct?
Entrance only.
Yeah.
Entrance on 4th Avenue.
Well, entrance
There
to
is
the
an
parking
entrance on
lot. but-
4th.
It would be entrance only off of Main Street. If I could speak to that just briefly. Parking is a pretty serious problem in Cardston, and I have no idea how much money West Wind has put into that parking lot. I mean, it's our land and we retain title to the parking lot. West Wind, you know, Labor Day through the end of school, gets a lot of benefit from it. And we've had to pay no actually out-of-pocket dollars for that parking. I envision that even if only from July 1st until Labor Day, a big green letter P with an arrow or two would go there, and we're talking about an additional $5,000 and change, and I think it would have some serious benefit to keep people in town. People between Labor Day and July the 1st that live here, that come and go through Cardston, will know about it. Hopefully we'll stop and spend a little bit more time here.
Here, Scott, prior to you coming back, this is what I suggested, that we have proper signage as public parking for that parking lot. That might require a little bit of consultation with West Wind School Division. My guess is that the number of spots that are there, I don't know, the last count was at 35. I don't know whether they'd be upset about that during the normal course of their business, since they've spent so much money there, but evenings, certainly they don't use it, and weekends they don't use it. We can put restricted parking from this time to that time.
So could I just have the motion read again, please, Jill?
Moved by Councillor Kronen to not entertain further costs to create an entrance only off of Main Street to the West Wind School.
The other comment that I would make about that motion is I would think that something that we consider would be whether we want to put that in our 2013 budget. So rather than refuse out of hand anything more than $15,000 that we consider, maybe we want to try to determine our priorities, whether or not to put it in the 2013 budget. Are you envisioning in your motion that we would maybe ask West Wind if they would top that up with our 15 to what it needs to be?
Well, my position is that I don't view the access on Main Street as being the best entrance. If people cross the highway coming from south to north and try to enter that way, we might have an accident ready to happen.
If I can clarify, I can almost guarantee you, if we said to transportation, do not allow any northbound traffic to do a left turn, we would make sure there's a solid line there, and anyone doing that would do it at their peril. The intent is that it only be accessible from southbound traffic, and because it would be coming in at an angle likely from the north, that there be no northbound traffic allowed to make that left turn. That, in my mind, would be very, very clear that not be allowed.
Well, maybe some other people may want to talk.
Well, my concern is that double lines don't work.
Well, I'm not succeeding.
People make U-turns in intersections.
And right on Main Street.
Double lines don't work. My other comment is that during the powwow, we had big signs out there saying powwow parking. People went by 2 or 3 times before they finally figured out that there was a parking lot there. So,
well, and the appropriate signage could change that.
But you'd have to make it conditional parking between these hours when the school board isn't in.
And your green and your big letter P would face the north and would not be visible for northbound. It would face the north for southbound traffic.
They've got good access off of 4th Avenue, and I can see no need to open up access off of Main Street, because they can get into it from 4th Avenue easily, and it doesn't cause any problems with the Main Street access.
But Councillor, it isn't about they. It's about community need for parking. And we know they'll use it. We know they'll use it. But it's about the community's need for parking.
I don't see any need, but we have, I think, adequate parking on our Main Street now.
Well, you don't spend near as much time on Main Street as I do.
I'm sure of that.
There's a lane over there.
Anyway, that's my opinions. Procedurally, is it the deputy mayor's prerogative to call the question, or, okay.
So I guess we'll call the question on the motion.
What's the motion again?
We don't
Go any further with the proposal to put a access from Main Street.
We could possibly add that we have proper signage attached to that area.
I would still like to work with the Westwind School Division on maybe splitting the cost of getting an access in there.
But they're not interested in it.
There's people turning left and right on Main Street all the time there.
And they make U-turns on Main Street and park on the other side.
So I guess those in favor, do you maybe want to read back the motion just so we've got it clear?
Moved by Councillor Kronen to not entertain further costs to create an entrance only off of Main Street to the Westwind School Division parking lot.
So I guess the question is, those in favor? Those opposed? Okay.
Carried.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, Owen Beezer is stuck in Montana, so that's why he's not.
Okay, all right. It would be nice if you would let somebody know. Before we go back into the issue of the offsite levies, 6D, 1590 and 1607, does anybody want to have, is it appropriate that we have some discussion about the Community Futures issue? I don't know if anyone else heard it, but I heard a veiled threat there. Marian?
Okay.
If I can just comment, I think what Reeve Curl was alluding to is their concern is the impact on that office. And I can look into the option of leaving our membership with the Community Futures and accessing services from Lethbridge. I don't know the logistics of that, if we have to belong to be able to access, if that's council's wishes. But I think, the concern on their point is the demise of these offices within rural Alberta is a concern to them.
Well,
Councillor Kronen?
I would be willing to entertain exactly that kind of situation where you could look into the possibility of us accessing services, because let's face it, that is still a natural corridor, and we know that, and our people in town would have more desire to move that way. But I also understand his point of view, but I don't like the threats.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, if there was such a concern about losing those offices, I mean, they should be doing everything that they possibly can to make sure that each and every municipality is included and their program's strong in each and every community as well. When you don't see a guy for 6 years or 5 years, obviously he's not too concerned about it. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on that one.
Councillor Creed and then Councillor Court.
My feeling is that we shouldn't be the ones to burn our bridges.
Be more clear, please.
Okay. Every connection that we can maintain good relations is a connection worth keeping. If we can foster other connections, that's valuable. But when we turn away from someone, it burns a bridge. And like I say, I don't feel like we should be the ones to burn the bridges.
I'm almost of the opinion there's no bridge existing there.
Well, and I guess my opinion is that, and I don't know how this, I guess Community Futures Southwest isn't related to the RETA the Southwest. That's totally separate. But you know, there's always a two-way street to everything. You know, maybe we haven't, and I don't know. I can't really totally speak to that because I haven't been in the business of, you know, looking for loans or anything like that. I don't know if there's businesses in town, so they might be able to answer that better. That's just my personal feeling, is that you need to try to maintain relationships as much as possible.
Marian, you had a comment?
I was just going to say the Community Futures Office is much more than just loans, just to clarify that.
Training programs.
And in the past, we have had a good connection with representatives from that organization, but it's been a number of years since we've had that. But for them to participate with our Economic Development Committee and to participate with our chamber to make sure that the programs that are being offered by the CF are being tailored to meet the needs of our economic development strategic plans is just as important as the loan side of that business. So I just wanted to clarify that it's not just simply a loan process.
Councillor Court?
I just wanted to that graph you had there, I kept thinking it's Community Futures Pincher Creek, not Community Futures Southwest, because, I mean, you looked at the two huge amounts of money going out Pincher Creek County and the town of Pincher Creek. Now, maybe our businesses aren't doing their homework to be able to access those loans. I don't know. But I think Councillor Smith and you both said it, and Marian both said, we don't see much of these guys. We don't hear much from them. We don't see much from them.
Councillor Kronen and Councillor Smith?
Jeff has told me that he has many times invited Tony to come to our economic development meetings. But we have rarely seen him. We saw him twice coming to our meeting. And once was to do a presentation, same presentation. And the other time was to express his concern with Carl, who is on that committee too, regarding us leaving. In between, we never heard anything. And we kind of mentioned that we were disappointed that nothing was happening in our town and that we were not, we didn't have any representation of Community Future at our economic development meeting.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, and sorry, I know I probably said more than I should have today or whatever, but I'm just saying, I mean, if you go to a business and you get bad service, how many times are you going to keep going back and getting bad service from them before you finally move on and try and get some better service from somebody else there? So, I mean, it's exactly like that. I mean, how many times are we going to get stood up or left in the dust or forgotten about before we decide to, you know, pick our lip up there and move on to a different...
Now let me just ask, Marian, you alluded to the fact that you would maybe make an inquiry about can we get some service from the Lethbridge office of Community Futures, and you'll be willing to do that and report back to us?
I could do if that's what council wishes.
Now, so let's talk very briefly, procedurally. I'm not seeing any sentiment for us to change the path that we've taken about 90 days ago or 120 days ago. So my feeling is, the sense I'm getting, we stand pat and we move up Highway 5, philosophically speaking, logistically speaking. But we might encounter some political backlash. We might, from Western Diversification, the people that are involved in overseeing Community Futures. So we have to consider that and determine if there's any impact on our course of action if we get some political backlash.
Well, I think since Marian offered to look into the possibility of services, accessing services from Lethbridge, why don't we give administration a chance to at least report
on
that possibility?
That's what I thought I was already saying.
Before we move along.
Marian, if you'll check on that for us, report back to us.
But do you need a motion or not?
Next meeting.
I would prefer a motion.
That's what I was saying.
We've got some direction on record to look
Okay, I'd like to take that motion from our Economic Development Representative, Councillor Kronen, if you're prepared to make the motion.
Yeah, I would put a motion forward that we ask administration to look into the logistics of accessing services from Community Future in Lethbridge while retaining our membership in Pitcher Creek.
Let me just ask, if I could, Marian, what does membership entail in Community Future?
It's actually a corporation, and so I'll bring that information back as part of this analysis so that you understand what the implications are.
And it would understandably involve or not be represented on their board as we are now, for example, with Nolan Card. And
if I might, just, I'm a little bit concerned about Nolan being the representative anyway. It should be either a member at large or a member of council. For years, Sharon Quinton was the member, and then it came back, when she went on her mission, it came back to council. And we had no council members who were interested in sitting on that board. And so by default, it got assigned to a staff member. And that's a concern. He is one of the few in all of CFs that is not an elected official. And so it's important, I think, that no matter where we end up with this, that the representative for the town of Cardston is a council member.
But just to go with Nolan on the board there, he agreed as well that we should remove ourselves from Alberta Southwest.
Originally, when we were talking with him, yeah, he understands our concerns, yes, and he's brought those concerns to the board.
Okay. So, Councillor Edmonds?
Well, is there any reason why, if we decide to go with Lethbridge and find out it doesn't work, that we can just go back with them? You know, if we try it for a year and see if we get any better coverage.
But they want you back.
I don't think that you want to flop back and forth.
No.
What I think with Lethbridge and what council's decision was based on is the natural trading corridor and the programs that their office is currently offering that are a good fit with our economic development strategic plan, and also with service that municipalities that belong to that office are getting in comparison to the service we're getting. So I don't anticipate the service there would be less than what we're getting now.
Okay, so I will call that question. All in favor of directing administration to pursue the information and bring it back to us as requested? All in favor? Carries. Thank you very much. The item that we need to move on to is 6D, and it's a very complicated issue. Marian's got some thoughts. The reason I thought that they sort of ended up meshing together was invariably the folks in the west area are going to come up against the issue of the offsite levies, but again, they are separate. So, Marian, if you want to introduce that.
I'll just go up here.
Anybody else didn't get a sandwich?
Okay, so in review of bylaw 1590 and bylaw 1607, we looked at not only the body of the bylaw, but also the schedules attached to that, because we were looking at the offsite levies that are apportioned to each of the areas that are defined in Schedule A. I put a copy of this in front of you just prior to the meeting. And if you want, I'll go into detail, but I'm going to try and summarize it for you as quickly as possible. When we were doing the analysis of the bylaw 1590, it became very evident that, first of all, our infrastructure master plan is not currently up to date. There's a number of projects that were identified on there that either are not needed or have changed in some way since that infrastructure master plan was put together. The other thing that's evident is we haven't identified all of the projects that may be required throughout the community. For instance, stormwater management ponds. We've talked a lot about the pond that's required in Area A, and we've developed bylaw 1607 around that. But we also are aware that there's definitely a pond required west of 12th Street. There's one required south of Area A, which would be in Area B, I guess. We know there's a pond required for the east area, and possibly additional. So what my recommendation is in reviewing this, I felt like there's a lot of information here that is not current with our current circumstances. As you're all aware, Dave Burrows is retiring the end of the year, and we're hiring a CET, which is a Certified Engineering Technician, for his replacement. My recommendation to council is that we bring forward a bylaw to actually rescind bylaw 1590, that we have our CET update the infrastructure master plan, and that we identify all projects that would require an off-site levy moving forward. You know, to have it all in one location, I think, would be beneficial, and we want to make sure that the information in there currently reflects our current status. So with that recommendation, there's a couple of things. We're still very confident that the stormwater pond that's designed and proposed for Area A will remain current, that those costs and the estimate of how that is assigned is accurate as well. But there may be some benefit to having it all under one bylaw. So that then could be removed from the table and would become part of the new bylaw as it's presented. We anticipate that the CET could have our infrastructure master plan updated in 2013, and we would be able to move forward with something beyond that.
I think it's a good move. But I also would like to ask you something regarding that pond in the Area A. I know we have had many representation, many concern for costs for developing that pond, although we as a town were willing to put a fair share of the money to be able to cover the costs. Is there a possibility in the future to look at another scenario where the owners, landowners, have to look after their own drainage problem and eventually look after that infrastructure themselves?
Right. If there's no off-site levy bylaw in place, each of the property owners, as they develop or subdivide their land, would be required to enter into a development agreement. Part of that development agreement would require that they provide for the engineering for their property. And so each property would be responsible at that point in time to design the management of the stormwater and also their own infrastructure within their property boundaries. I would anticipate that as we move forward, and for instance, if two of the property owners in Area A were to move forward with subdivision and were to hire an engineer to come in and look at that for their own property, I would anticipate that their engineer would recommend that they try to work cooperatively with the larger structure. We've already looked in that area of individual ponds to not have to do one major pond, and the engineer's recommendation was that it was cost prohibitive compared to the one pond. So to answer your question, that was a long yes.
Thank you, because if I understand correctly, the Atkins development was required to put a pond and to look after the pond, correct?
the Atkins development is not developed.
The Allison, I mean.
The Ellison, yes.
Sorry.
Atkins
Yeah.
are actually, there's a number of ways to deal with stormwater. It doesn't all have to be by way of pond. So it can be engineered to be dealt with in a number of ways. The Atkins subdivision is actually looking at what they call a low impact development. So they're going to have to put berms and swales and a number of different things. It's all how the property is engineered to deal with a more natural drainage because of their location.
Right.
So theirs will be different than a pond, but they are still paying the engineer and they're required to develop a stormwater management plan for their property.
Right. And the Allison has a pond. The Allison has a pond.
Ellison's has a pond and they pay for that themselves.
The Schow development, do they not also have ponds in place in their outline in their?
Yes, it's designed.
And who will be paying for that?
Right now it would be at their
Schow
expense,
development,
yeah.
okay.
So basically, we need to look at all of the undeveloped land in town and say, okay, what do we need for infrastructure upgrades to accommodate that in the future? And I think it needs to be comprehensive and it needs to be up to date. So my recommendation would be that right now we just kind of take a step back and we sort of reconfigure how the town is going to develop over time.
It sounds like a motion would be in order.
To bring forward a bylaw.
To rescind the two bylaws.
And I will call that motion. Councillor Dahl so moves. Discussion on the motion.
Which motion is this to rescind? 15th to rescind.
Just to rescind and to bring
The 250, 1907.
1607
We
together.
haven't passed 1607.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
right.
You don't have to rescind 1607.
Is bylaw in place though? Like an offsite levy bylaw in place until another one's
Well,
drafted?
right now it would just be up to the property owners to deal with it within their own property. So if there was an upgrade required, Councillor, if there's no bylaw in place and let's say we need to upsize a water line to serve a development, we would have to negotiate with that developer to pay the cost.
Would it be better just to leave 1590 in place until the other one's
Well, the
completely drafted?
1590 is not accurate in some areas, so we would have to make all those red that I've put in front of you. We would have to make all those amendments to bring it accurate to what's in there. And there would be more that needs to be added.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think this should be priority one for our new
Yes.
technician.
Yeah, we'll move on it very quickly so that it's...
I will call that question. All in favor of the motion. Carries, thank you. The next item has to do with the wage classification for engineering and project manager. Does anybody have any questions on that? And does that need a motion, Marian?
Yes.
Okay.
That's been approved by the Employee Association to be added to the wage classification, so
Okay.
now we're looking for a motion.
Councillor Kronen so moves. Any discussion on the motion to add the wage classification for engineering and project manager, essentially replacing David Burrows? Seeing no comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That carries. Assessment Review Board. Marian, just give us a little background there if you would, please.
Well, we have a regional membership with the Assessment Review Board with the Old Man River. But we have two representatives trained to sit on that board. They were Richard Bengry and Dr. Bob Russell. Dr. Russell is asked to be relieved of that duty, so we need someone to volunteer to be trained. It's a 2-day training to be qualified to sit on those boards. So I'm looking for either a council member to volunteer or we can use a member at large.
I understand one has put forth her name.
Yes, I would be interested in receiving that training.
Anybody else? So we'd either do paper, rock, scissors, or arm wrestle, or whatever.
It's okay.
Anybody else who is desirous of taking that training? Do we need a motion to accept Councillor Kronen, or we just move ahead with that?
A motion.
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Court moves that the vacancy that we need to fill on the Assessment Review Board be filled by Councillor Kronen. I'll call a question. All in favor? That one carries. Thank you. The FCSS board is put a letter, we have a letter in their package. They're sending a letter to the minister. Do we need to sign off on that, Marian, and just approve in principle, or what do we need?
Motion to send a letter. The concern, if I might just give a little bit of background on this, Mr. Mayor. The Alberta Association is concerned with the government's mandate for their social, what is it called? Sorry, social policy framework. And the impact that that may have to FCSS organizations throughout the province. And so the basis of this is they want to make sure that the government understands the importance of the local FCSS meeting the local needs. They don't want their mandate increased, but they also don't want their funding decreased. So it's just simply a little bit of a proactive approach to say that our current programming is ready and able to support that social policy framework for the province.
I would so move. Can we do that?
Councillor Edmonds so moves. Any discussion on that motion? Call a question. All in favor? Thank you, Councillor Edmonds. The next item is Remembrance Day services on Sunday the 11th. I will be there to give the mayor's remarks. Deputy mayor typically conducts that meeting. Is that okay with you, Councillor Kronen?
Absolutely.
Okay. And if I could, I'd like to see by show of hands who is available to attend that meeting. It's at the high school on Sunday the 11th.
I'll be at a meeting, I'm not sure which one yet.
I know that in the West Stake...
Court, aren't you presenting at that meeting?
No, that'd be Emily Drew is presenting at that meeting.
Oh, I thought you were helping.
I'm sitting down Thursday night with her to find out exactly what she's doing. So I may be presenting with her.
I think
otherwise we don't have a speaker, so
Emily Drew is the person.
Okay.
For the record, I do know the West Stake, for those that applies to, is having no meetings.
Just sacrament meetings.
Just sacrament meetings.
And just at noon.
At 1:30, yeah.
At 1:30. I do not know about the Cardston Stake.
To tell you the truth, we have not received a word yet.
Okay, all right. Can you speak to that at all, Mr. Peterson? Do you know if the West Stake has given any direction on worship services on the 11th?
West Stake is.
Cardston Stake.
I'm sorry, did I say West? I meant Cardston Stake. I'm sorry.
We have not received any indication that there's any variance from our meetings.
Okay, all right.
Probably they will follow us there.
That's a good thing to do. Sometimes, not all the time. Okay, date for the Christmas party. I'm going to have a date for the Christmas party. It's not going to be anybody in this room.
Thank you.
You might be sorry.
I'm not even open to offers on that. I've had a lot of people volunteer to be on the airplane with us to Mexico tomorrow. I have one flying companion, and that's my dear wife. Anyway, so Marian has a couple of proposals to make.
Okay, the dates we're looking at are November 29th, December 6th, or the 13th. We've normally had it on a Thursday evening. In speaking with the staff, the majority of the staff would like to have it at the Legion and have the Legion ladies cater to us. And I've also looked into having a comedian for entertainment.
Oh, sounds good.
So for almost the same price maybe $100 difference of what we paid last year. That's what we can
Is that Dave Burrow's new job there or what?
We're gonna ask Dave to write a poem because he's retiring, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So if council's okay with that, the staff thought that would be.
Who's going to censor that poem?
I told them that the commuting would need to be very clean, and she said to me, fuzzy bunny clean? I said, yes. She said, okay, we can do that. So I just need a date that would work best.
This is Thursday, you said?
Or what?
Yeah.
What are the
29th, December 6th, or the 13th.
What's the best for your people?
Normally, towards the end of November is better, because
Yeah,
people
it's
get
less
busy in
pressed.
December.
Yeah.
Well, everybody else seemed to be moving that way.
Oh, they're all moving to November because December's busy, is that?
Yeah.
I would suggest either the 29th or the 6th would be the best dates.
Yeah, I just certainly don't want it any later than either of those dates. At this point in time, that's a tough night for Kronen's, but
We'll figure it out.
yeah. What's your preference, council? The 29th or the 6th?
I do the 29th.
November 29th sounds like it's the day, Marian.
Okay.
Thank you for the work you've done on that. Fortis would like to do a survey. They want to start by talking to us as a council, giving us sort of an in-depth questionnaire. They are currently talking to Crow's Nest Pass and Fort McLeod, and I guess they want to learn by the process that they had here. So the specifics of it, they want to talk to us, I guess individually, and they want to sort of put some kind of a survey through to the public as well. And they sort of wanted our okay to engage the public in that process. Is that all that we need to have that discussion, Marian?
Yeah, basically, I think they want to just learn from their experience, but I suggested to the mayor that perhaps we ask for some general results of that, because I think it could give us some good information about how the process was from our end as well, and perhaps some improvements that we could take in for any future public consultations that we want to go through.
We heard the occasional comment from people who came and spoke to us, yeah, you've already got your mind made up, and that's a perception that's can be in the public view, in the public, you know.
Didn't we vote against the Fortis
Yes.
offer, etc.? And
It's-
it keeps coming up.
They want to know why.
They just want to know why.
Councillor Smith.
Do you need a motion for that there? If you do, I'll make the motion that we allow Fortis to.
They're not trying to get us to revisit the issue. They're just trying to learn if there's anything to be learned from what they went through. And I like the concept that we'd like them to kind of find out the public's perception of the process that where we tried to engage the public on about 5 occasions, 2 formally and 3 casually. Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion?
Oh, you got that, Joe. Yeah.
Okay, that carried. Next item is the budget meeting. It's proposed to be on the 30th. That will be the first presentation of the budget. I will be away, but I'm sure that the 6th, who can be there on the 30th?
That's a week from tonight?
It's a week from tonight. Who can?
Because we have a 5th Tuesday, I thought it might not conflict.
Who can be there a week from tonight? And, okay, so
So we're okay for October 30th at 4?
At what time?
Sure.
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock? Yeah, okay.
do we need a motion on that, Marian?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Is that a public meeting?
Yep, the public can be there.
It doesn't need to be
It's
advertised?
just very preliminary, no, this is just our preliminary draft budget, so it's just for council to kind of see the initial budget, talk about some priorities, those kind of things. So-
I just want to know if this doesn't have to be advertised like a council meeting, or?
No.
Marian,
It's like a committee meeting, councillor. It's not a formal council meeting. There's no motions or any of that. It's just an informal budget.
But
just rather than trying to fit it in with one of our other scheduled meetings, there's just too much information to take in all in one night.
So will there be a package there in our box on Friday?
Yes, we'll have a package to you by Friday.
So we can pick it up.
Yeah.
Mayor, could I just ask a question of Marian?
Sure.
When were you going to present the 3-year budget? You know, you were
Tuesday.
Planning on Tuesday, that very Tuesday you were going to present that.
That's our preliminary 3-year
Okay,
budget.
all right, so that's what I wanted to know, thanks.
Okay, now, so I will miss you dearly on Thursday. Number 9, financial report. I want to again extend our appreciation to administration for the exhaustive work that you do to keep us up to speed on our finances. And we need a motion to accept that too, don't we?
I need to give you one comment on the financial
Okay.
statement. On our term deposits, when I was reviewing this documentation, it shows a bond maturity date of December 18th, 2017 with the TD.
Yes.
On June 30th, 2019. Those rates are actually the bond rate, but they're not our effective rate. Because we purchased those at a premium. We just purchased them in 2012. So what happens is you purchase it at a premium and then they discount the interest rate. So our effective rate on those are 2.87 and 4.09 respectively.
Okay, I'll take a
I
motion.
apologize for that. That is the bond rate, but that's not the rate of return we're going to.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the financial report.
Also move.
And moved by Councillor Court to accept the financial report of the date specified.
Councillor
Questions?
Dahl.
Sorry, Councillor Dahl. The next letter in the alphabet, D. D is in Dahl. Any discussion on that financial report?
I had some discussion, but I'll discuss with Marian
Okay.
personally.
Okay. I'll call a question. All in favor? Thank you. Third quarter development report, permits and all such information there for our scrutiny. 10C, Shaw Cable comes into town. Lori Templeton is sort of their person who interacts and who does some relations work with the communities, and so she was into town. We met with her, 2 or 3 times before Marian. And she had with her a gentleman named Lee Neville, who is essentially the project manager for all of southern Alberta. And they had some very good news. They realized that they took a beating in the hailstorm, a lot of damage, and I don't think they're not insured, are they? So what they are doing, possibly as a result of that situation, they are totally redoing the Shaw Cable here in Cardston. Their lines are being completely redone. What's the word? Reinstalled, something like that. Rebuilt. When they're done, and it's about a 4-month project, I don't know exactly when they're starting, but when they're done, we will have as good a cable internet connections as there is anywhere in the province. Calgary, Lethbridge will not have any better than we will have.
Sounds good.
So that's good. I think that's about all I can tell you there. I've encouraged them to do a little bit of PR work in the community. They've lost some customers because of the downtime, but I've encouraged them to do some PR work. So let everybody know that these trucks that are around and so forth, they're totally redoing, rebuilding their system, and will have the best in the province. Councillor Edmonds.
Is there a position on the pole as to how close they can be to the electrical wires? Because on our street, every time we get a semi-trailer truck going up there, they wipe out the cables.
Actually, they're working with our electrical department, and we will be reinstalling some new poles in certain locations where some of that is a problem, or the pole is aged or whatever. But our electrical department has been working very closely with their engineers
think the problem is the pole on our side is shorter than the ones on the other, and it slopes down and they snag it every time they go through.
So you've got that midget pole.
Yeah.
Oh dear. You get short change.
Probably been there since 1902.
Probably.
Go out and fertilize it and water it.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll grow.
You were there, weren't you?
Not quite.
No, not quite.
I was waiting for you, Davey.
All right.
Now, as we go into the committee reports, let me emphasize that it's very, very important that we attend our assigned committee meetings. Now, occasionally there's a conflict, occasionally a conflict of you need to be in two places. I think we fixed that. Occasionally time of day can be a problem. I think we fixed those. It is not a good reflection on us as a council if committee meetings are not attended. So I want to encourage you that if you know you cannot attend a committee meeting, please let the office know. The office, I'm going to request the office contact myself as soon as you know, and I will try to attend some meetings. I might have to put a phone call to the deputy mayor to see if between the two of us we can cover some of those meetings. So please do your utmost to attend those meetings, and if you can't, let us know so that we can try to cover those. Ag Society has been Councillor Court. It's now the responsibility of Councillor Smith.
I did attend the last one. They were just kind of reviewing how the summer went with their road. It seemed like it went very well for them. Okay, so things.
Airport was Councillor Smith. It's moving to Councillor Creed. You need to buy an airplane, or you need to...
I already got an invitation to go flying, so.
Okay.
I'm in a wrong committee.
Now, I don't know when they held their last meeting, so I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't held one for, I think they had, I think it was last month there actually, I think that they held it.
South Grove, Councillor Kronen?
We had a meeting on Monday, October the 15th, and it was to launch the Water for Economic Development project, and we had a presentation of the Old Man River Modeling Project. It was a very interesting presentation, and at that meeting we also spoke about Lee Creek and the problem that we see with that creek as a tributary to the other rivers, and they were willing to look into the difficulties that we may have on that river. So that was quite interesting. Very good.
Thank you. Communities in Bloom.
Okay, we have a meeting, one more meeting this Thursday. We still have one more ongoing project that is the Main Street trees. We're building some planters. We won't get enough for all of the Main Street, but we want to do the 200 the 200 block this year, and we want to put a planter fence, I guess, around each tree, every other tree, and then put rubber mats around the bottoms of the other trees. And Lloyd made an application for a grant for the rubber mats. He was turned down for the amount that he applied for, and they said, we'll give you a greater amount. So he's happy with that, I think.
Doubled it up.
Yeah, it was. He asked for 15 and he got 22, I think. So anyway, we're good there.
We need to have him be the asker more frequently.
Yeah, maybe so.
I'd love to move him into the finance department.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's...
Chief Mountain Regional Solid Waste Authority.
Okay, yeah, that's going to Councillor Kronen, but they are...
I could report on something. There was a vote by email, and it was not very pleasant to me. The request was that always the extra waste that was going to go over the 10,000 pound allowed for that site, that all the extra would go directly to Lethbridge and Covey, Cowley, and Cowley.
Frozen.
Okay, and so that all those who work on demolition, construction, whatever in town would have to take all that over here. I had offered them a third solution, to be able to bring all the waste over there, since that trucking access already to Lethbridge, to carry on doing that, but to have a surcharge fee because we're full. But the man didn't think it was a good idea. And I thought it was probably for convenience for those people who work in construction, a way better solution that would respect them as business people. But it was not entertained.
Okay, Chinook Foundation?
The Chinook Foundation has got some problems. They want to buy the Forsyth property, which has been approved by the foundation. They've got money to buy it, but the foundation has been not properly registered as a foundation with the government. Somebody else has the name Chinook Foundation. So what they've decided to do is have the town of McGrath buy the property, and they will give them the money to reimburse them for that property. And so that's been a topic of discussion for 2 or 3 meetings now, that Forsyth property. And just because it wasn't properly registered with the government when it was organized many years ago.
Just to give you a background, they're looking to expand the lodge down there because it's not up to staff really.
No, it's not up to
So
They don't have a lot of people beating down the door to get in.
no, the rooms are very small. I mean, they do okay, but we had some good discussions with the government at the AUMA meetings, and it sounds
Yeah,
like
that was an excellent discussion.
so hopefully things will move ahead.
Okay, ECDev.
We did not have a meeting in October.
Okay, Fire?
EMS, actually, I'll report on one thing that they are doing. They're procuring some fire ban signs to put around at various locations in the county. Hopefully about 8, initially I think 8 signs to put up in various locations so that when there's a fire ban they can announce with a flip down that there's a fire ban in effect. So.
And on the other side, where to call if you need a permit.
Yeah. So the signs
phone number will be right there.
for burning permits.
Great. FCSS?
They're getting ready for the Halloween party, and we're having it at the high school this year, so that's a little different from previous years.
How did we manage that?
I don't know, we were just informed that we were on vacation.
The high school's actually going to put it on, so we'll give them the money to do it one of their groups or one of their classes, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Handy bus.
There's no meeting, but there is a piece of correspondence regarding the Handy Bus Association there, if you want me to, do you want to do that right now, or?
Yeah, just.
Is that on the funding?
Yeah, the funded.
Oh,
summarize it
from
right.
the Rotary.
As part of the budget discussion?
No.
Next week, if that.
Is that
Oh, no, it's from
from
the
the
Rotary
Rotary?
Club?
Oh.
Yeah, there is a piece of correspondence on that regarding the golf tournament. It says, thanks to the combined participation and contribution of yourself and many others, we were able to raise approximately $6,000 for the Cardston Community Handy Bus Association to assist with the purchase of a new wheelchair lift there. So that was from the Rotary Club there, so we appreciate all the work they do as well. So
Thank you.
Thank them for
Sorry, I
that.
thought you meant it was a letter from the Handy Bus Association.
Oh, is that okay?
We have a request for funding, but we'll bring it as part of.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, other than that, yeah, no meeting, just that piece of correspondence.
Good, thank you. Historical Society.
I have some concerns about the Historical Society. They're basically imploding.
Doesn't sound good.
They started off with 19 members, they're now down to about 11. And out of those 11, we get maybe 5 to 6 for a meeting. And people are just burning out. They don't have the time. And so as a result, rather than doing a lot of things that we used to do for ourselves, we're now employing people to do it, and that's eating up the budget.
Oh boy.
And the problem is that the money was donated to restore the building, and it's now going to start going into
The
other areas.
salaries.
Oh dear.
And I know they're trying hard, but they're just not getting anywhere right now. So I think we need to keep an eye on it, and all we need is more volunteers, but everybody in town is on 2 or 3 different things.
Yeah.
and don't have the time, so.
I assume that you're aggressively pursuing expanding your numbers back up to getting us. I know the Ag Board from time to time has people not showing up. They sometimes don't get a quorum. Yeah.
Or they come an hour late, or...
Well, okay, so keep us apprised of how that plays out, because we hate to see the demise of that organization, or any organization, quite frankly. Intermunicipal Development Plan Committee, haven't had a meeting. Levitt Irrigation District?
No meeting?
Library?
Yeah, they had a meeting last night that they attended there, and they passed the draft budget there. I noticed there was quite a lofty increase this year, but I noticed on 2014, 2015, they never took that increase off, so it's continuing to show for the next couple of years, so I think that needs to be looked at there. So I know there was some work done, I think some maintenance that they asked for a little bit of extra money in the budget, and I do look at the budget and I'm thinking, man, that's a lot of money that the town puts out for that. I mean, the library is a wonderful thing to have, but it's...
We just don't get any support from the county.
And I agree, and that's one of the things that I brought up as well.
I don't have.
That's why I was a little bit upset with that veiled threat that we just heard a little while ago.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Marian, when I went to the meeting a couple of months ago, maybe it's been 3 months ago, the question came up and I couldn't answer it. When they have their audit, do we pay for their audit?
We've asked them to include it in their budget. It should be part of their budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's another question about K&B. Are they the K&B heating or whatever? Was that?
They should be budgeting for all their maintenance and general repairs.
But they thought they were going to get a better deal if K&B kind of went off through the town or whatever type of thing, or I mean that's what Donna Beezer was saying or whatever. That she spoke to, whether I don't know if it was you or Jeff or whatever maybe, and they were discussing K&B heating, that if they go under the town umbrella or whatever, that they would get a better deal to service their equipment or whatever.
We can help them acquire anything if they can get a better deal from us, yes, but ultimately they need to pay for it.
Well, right, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just one of the, I assume somebody knew, or I thought she said you.
Yeah, she hasn't talked to me about it, no,
okay.
But if there's anything that we can do to help them get a better price on something, for sure, we don't mind.
She just hasn't heard back.
We just invoice them for straight across. They are a creature.
The MPC, Municipal Planning?
He had a meeting and approved one development project, and that was Nolan Card enlarging his entrance to his house.
Holy cow.
Orsk also had a special meeting. Unfortunately, I fell ill that night, so I couldn't attend it. And I haven't really heard. Have you heard anything?
I asked for an update, and I was told that the recommendations were approved 22 to 10.
Right, so what that means is that we will get an independent...
Okay.
It's not an audit, independent.
Review.
No, the recommended increases, I understand. I haven't seen the official report yet. The recommended increases, but they are willing to accept the idea of setting up a committee with CAOs, council, and some council representation and Old Man River administration representation to do that review.
So back me up, they approved the increases?
That's terrible.
That's what I understand.
I don't understand.
I haven't had it officially, I've just...
Well, I missed by one vote. If it had been missed by one vote, I'd have felt bad, but since it missed by 12, I'm off the hook.
Parks and Recreation, Councillor...
We really haven't had a meeting. Just they did a lot of work on the joint use, and there has been some discussion about, I'm sure there's going to be further discussion on the football field.
Yeah.
That'll come into other discussions with the next meeting we have, I'm sure.
Yeah. And the final one is the powwow. We did have a wrap-up meeting here this that was about a couple of weeks ago. One of the things that the Moses Lake folks want to do is they want to expand and have sort of, for lack of a better term, Moses Lake days. They want to enhance their community celebration. Discussion was held around maybe Heritage Week having a softball tournament Monday and Tuesday. They want to extend the powwow. Personally, and I don't know where Councillor Kronen's at on this, my philosophy is they want to extend the powwow, but we often carry the heavy burden. We do the heavy lifting, staffing, and volunteering, and our volunteer base is drying up a little bit from the stakes. There's talk that maybe they would bring a midway out into Moses Lake. As distasteful as midways can be, we've asked them to check and see if, from the tribal police, if they have any problems with that carny element when that midway is out at standoff, because they try very, very carefully, very, very diligently that it be alcohol-free, drug-free, and all of that. So those comments were made quite openly in the meeting. Some of them want to increase the prize money, and I guess my concern is, where does that money come from? What else did you take away from that meeting, Councillor Kronen?
Well, essentially, I had the feeling that they were to take more ownership of that powwow, when the intent was to build relationships in this town, and now it seems to be taking a little bit of a different spin as to provide entertainment for their community rather than building relationships. So Sean Singer
Yep.
was going to come back to us with his ideas, and we accepted to look at them, but I let them know that our budget was $5,000.
Period.
And that's what it was, and that we had no other means to give more money than that, and that if they intended to have fundraisers, they would have to kind of take the lead on that one. So.
Yeah. They want to bring into the powwow, they want very strongly to bring in hand games. And hand games, quite frankly, is a form of gambling, but we thought that maybe that would have to be held out at Moses Lake alongside the gym and some space out there. But apparently it's quite a big draw, but I'm not sure how well that would go over in town. I think probably if they're going to want to do the sticks and the hand games, they better do it on their own turf. But it does bring a lot of people, apparently. Okay, correspondence. Rotary Club of Cardston sends us a letter of thanks. Municipal Affairs is talking about some special library awards. And of course, we got CC'd on that. So that's there for your interest. A template appears to have taken shape with the Lower Athabasca Regional Plan, which has been released.
Yeah,
that's item item 12B or C. It ends up being another set of hoops to jump through. And of course, because it is Lower Athabasca, that doesn't mean it's in effect here, but I think it'll probably be used as a template. So it's there to look at. I need a motion, please. Councillor Court moves we go on camera. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Corey.
Marian, can I ask you something?